Let's be real. We all should take a break from alcohol from time to time. It's good for our overall health, but can help with sleep and anxiety. And more sleep, less anxiety are great things. But during those breaks, you may hang out with some friends and want to feel included. Maybe you want a beer with your burger off the grill. Luckily, Athletic Brewing is making non-alcoholic beers that taste just like world-class craft beers. Athletic are brewing styles like IPAs, stouts, sours, and lagers, but all are non-alcoholic. These award-winning, great-tasting beers are also vegan-friendly. There's a reason Athletic is one of the fastest-growing companies, let alone breweries, in the country. You can get Athletic Brewing NA beers delivered right to your door as well. Go to unitedwedrink.com/athletic and start shopping. Grab a sixer of an IPA or one of their limited edition brews that are constantly rotating with new styles. And right now you can get free shipping on any order when you buy 2 6-packs or more. No code needed. Just add 2 to your cart, go to checkout, and there you go. Free shipping. Take a break from alcohol with something that tastes great. Try Athletic Brewing today by going to unitedwedrink.com/athletic. Athletic Brewing. Beer fit for all times.
The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that has taken a nosedive in listen since losing a previous co-host. Welcome to United We Drink right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mikey Revich, and I am very much into the Oktoberfest season, and I'm at 8 Oktoberfest different beers that I've tried this year, and I still need more going on in my life. And with me, as always, is a man who I believe it would say that he's a lover of the Oktoberfest styles of beers as well, because he loves malty. He loves nice, well-made lagers. It's Kevin Abbott.
Michael, it is an honor and a privilege to be with you as always. And I do love Oktoberfest beers. I do love a Marzen. I do love malty, rich, full-flavored lagers. One of my favorite styles. I wish we would do one. We're talking about it for next year, actually. The possibility of doing our first Marzen. So that would be a pretty cool thing. I did want to mention that for anybody who is not currently listening, which is a real tough thing to wrap your brain around if you really think about it, I do want to say that Joel is spiritually here, and he is sitting on Mike and I's shoulders and whispering mean-spirited things to say into the microphone. So, he's still with us.
He is, in a sense. He's also moved on to his own kind of podcastish thing. He's streaming video games and talking about beer on Twitch. So if you dig Joel and you miss Joel, go over to his Twitch channel, which is Joel Brews, and he's started doing the Brewing Simulator game on Steam. And it looks like he's going to have people come on and help him brew beers and talk about beer and just probably Marvel and a bunch of other stuff too. So cheap plug for you, Joel. Don't say that I never did anything for you.
Wow. When you first said he was playing games, I was thinking, Sonic the Hedgehog, maybe Pong. I did not know there was a brewing simulator. And I was vaguely aware that Twitch was a thing. But I'm old.
I told him for whenever I get invited onto the show, I want to do Power Wash Simulator instead of the brewing one because I'd rather do cellar work than actually brew the beer. And that is a game that I have played and really enjoy because it's very meditative and lethargic to just power wash things.
Funny you said that. I did buy a electric power washer and spent last weekend, the weekend before last, cleaning off my entire back patio. One of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life.
Power
I
washing
want to
is
do it
like,
again. It is. It's meditative. There's something really beautiful about just like watching all that grime and dirt. It's a metaphor for life. It just flows away and we're leaving the clean, pristine, virgin tile. That just
I
got vaguely
just
sexual.
the that should happen more often on this show, to be honest. I've heard it from a few listeners. They're like, the sexuality needs to be turned up a good bit, and I'm with them. I'm with them.
I'll work on
But I like power washing in real life too, except for when it is hot, humid, and not wet. Like, which is probably most of the year. So I don't enjoy power washing in real life most of the time.
it. I mean, it's two sides of the same coin. Mike, I enjoy washing in real life. You enjoy power washing on some sort of video contrivance, and never the twain shall meet.
Yes, and that's probably for the better. Kevin, we're here recording a podcast about adult beverages. Are you partaking in an adult beverage tonight?
I was this close to not having a beer tonight because I had my dad in town for a full week. And during that time, I conservatively drank my face off. I don't think there was any day where I consumed less than 4 or 5 glasses of whiskey or beer. I did not have a drop of alcohol yesterday, which was the first time in over a week. And I said, I'm just going to have some waters tonight. But I have an issue. I have a problem, and then we're going to talk about it after the show. But I am drinking a Monk in the Park by Barrel of Monks. Just one. I'm going to have this one. It's a kind of an imperial stout quad hybrid. I can sip this through the entire show and not feel like too much of a lush.
And are you drinking unflavored bubbly water?
I am not. I did not have any cold. I have a strawberry Waterloo. And I have a cherry blossom La Croix. The cherry blossom La Croix tastes like Tootsie Rolls. It's very odd, and once you think that and try it, it's a mixture of delicious and absolutely vile. And every other sip I change back and forth. I waffle. Is this disgusting? Is it delicious? Is it disgusting? Delicious? It's a riddle.
We were at your house. My wife and I and my children were at your house a couple weeks ago, and my wife had one of those, and I thought it was. I didn't get Tootsie Roll, but it was so weird because it was like you said, equal parts. I think this is awesome, and equal parts. I think this is terrible, and it probably was a bit much for me to make it a everyday thing, like having a can at someone's house who bought it instead of me. I'm all for that, but it was, yeah, I don't know. Have you had the limoncello one?
I love the limoncello one.
It is weird how sweet it is for something that has no sugar in it. But
I agree.
But it is like it's lemon and vanilla, wrapped in one, and I was like, oh, good. No thanks. That was not something I bought, but I was at someone's house, and I was like, oh, I'll give this a whirl.
I feel like you just go around house to house, just taking advantage of their bubbly water situation, Mike.
So what about it?
Like some kind of reverse Johnny Appleseed. You go to places and take things from them. I don't know, Mike.
I mean, it's better than me just taking their beer, right?
It depends on what beer they have. Some beers, it might be better if you took those because they aren't very good.
Well, my water of choice right now that I have lime Spindrift. The Spindrift 30 pack at Costco is a deal you cannot pass up. I think it's $15 or $17 for a 30 pack. It's silly. I have a can of our fest beer from Copper Point. We just had our Oktoberfest celebration this past weekend. We kicked all of our kegs. We only had, as of a day before recording this, probably about 3 cases of cans left. We only did 10 barrels, and we released it about 2 weeks ahead of the Oktoberfest. So to sell out of all of it in 2 weeks is pretty nice.
Wow.
We'll brew more next year for those of you who missed out on it. So hopefully we can get maybe a little more out to market and such. I also have a little taster of Gunner Wheated Bourbon that I picked up from a suggestion from an employee at the liquor store. I was just looking through, and he's like, "Anything I can help you with?" I was like, "Help me make Buffalo Trace be a thing I can find again." And he's like, "Yeah, sorry about that." He's like, "Well, I have this, and it's very similar to Weller, not Buffalo Trace, but still a good bourbon, and it was only $32. So I was like, I'll pull the trigger on it. It's a fine bourbon. It's definitely worth the $32. So, who knows? I might buy it again. Doesn't taste like Weller, but it's good. All right, Kevin. So we were texting, and you came up with a good idea, I think, for this episode. And we wanted to talk about misconceptions of the beer industry. And I should preface this by saying I feel like a lot of our show in general can be about misconceptions of the beer industry, but there are a lot of little, small, nuanced things that come up a lot, and can really be bothersome when you are trying to just, get by, make beer, sell beer, keep lights on, keep employees paid and happy, and things an outsider might think goes on. And just to get out of the way, the whole "you must drink all day long," we know that that's not true. So we're not even going to touch on that. But you had a lot of ones that I probably wouldn't have thought of if even given like 5 minutes to like really sit down and pen to paper come up with stuff like this. So why don't you kick us off with some misconceptions that people have on the brewing industry, and we're just going to flow through this and talk about them. It'll go into all bunch of different directions, I'm sure.
Well, one of the things that's important is that I've worked in the brew house, I've worked in management, ownership, I've been a bartender, I've been at the place of. Let me try this again, and I'll try to speak English. I've been in every position at a brewery and dealt with customers on every single different level. So I've gotten a lot of complaints about things or perspective about things that are kind of unique. And I'm not special in that way. So many people in our industry wear multiple hats, but it does give you a perspective on what people are thinking when they're giving you an idea, they're making a suggestion. And one of the ones that always comes up to me is the idea that your favorite beer, and I'm talking about, the customer of Barrel Amongst Brewing, that your favorite beer should be or could be somehow our new flagship. Whatever that beer is, it's their favorite beer. They tell you it's got to be year round, and I want to see it. My local liquor store down the street needs to have this Saison in 750 milliliter bottles so I can go pick it up. Having absolutely no understanding of the fact that to do that, to bring on another SKU and do something then in mass distribution, not only has to align with the distributor's wants, the market's needs and abilities, my production capabilities. It's the thought that somehow I can flip a switch and all of a sudden I can make a beer happen, so to speak. And I know, Mike, you've had, there was a running joke at Copper Point about one of your beers that people always ask to come back, right?
Yeah, there's like three people who ask for one particular beer to come back, and that's a beer that I guess the last time it was made was before I even worked there, and it was like around for 6, 7 months. It was a big malty, like imperial red ale, and it's like no, like we don't we're not going to make something that takes that long to go through. And this happened at our previous brewery. This happens practically everywhere with someone. You should make this year round. And the thing is with that is sometimes the owner or manager or someone believes it themselves and wants to have the conversation about it. And it's like, oh, now I gotta tell the boss that like we really shouldn't be making a coffee porter year round that takes us 3 to 4 months to go through a 15 barrel batch of. Like this isn't a feasible thing for it. And they'll say, well, that means we just don't have to brew it that often. It gives us another handle that we can work with out on the market. Like, except Chili's doesn't want that. Duffy's doesn't want that. Uh, Grocery stores don't really want that. Like, they,
It chokes up your cooperage.
yeah,
It puts you in a bad position where you're basically being a warehouse instead of a warehouse that archives beer for future use and not turning over tanks over and over again. Uh, the thing is anytime someone comes, and this is the thing, they're coming from a good place.
yeah.
They're a fan of
absolutely.
our beer and they love a particular one and they want to have it more often, or they want to have it at their favorite bar. Or we have people that will say, oh, I live in Miami and I can't come up very often. Can't you send X beer down there? And it's the level of the three-tiered system and the SKUs that are available and that we can actually sell to a distributor. And then they have to understand that that bar would then have to buy that beer and they would have to put it on their draft list. And what unfortunately it comes down to is that the first 5, 6 years I spent in this industry, I spent trying to make brands happen because I like them, because I was passionate about them, whether it's a red ale or a straight porter, what have you, and then had my hopes dashed on the rocks of reality when it was absolutely understood that no one wanted those beers. They were not going to sell in the market. No matter what you do, no matter what you price them at, there are not enough outlets that are going to want those styles. Or Belgian beer, quads, doubles, triples. That was our entire MO. And I love our double so much. And our people in our tap room love our double. And they tell me over and over again how we have to make this available to more people. And all I can say, and I try to be as honest as possible, guys, we love this beer, but there's not enough of us, right? You have developed a love by coming here and understanding the quality and how we make them. But when someone's walking through their local grocery store, they don't have that experience and they're not picking that beer up. They're not going to pick up a $14 4-pack of a Belgian double from Boca Raton. That's a group of words that no one wants to put together.
Yeah, and you could dash their hopes even more if you want to, by being like, look, who are some of the bigger makers of doubles in the world? You don't find them in the stores either. It's nothing against the quality of that beer. It's just that there isn't a market for that in that particular segment. Like the grocery stores, you might be able to find it in some C stores. Phil will be happy to hear me say a term like that. But it just isn't there for it. And I mean, I'm thrilled sometimes when I see a spot that has like Chimay or St. Bernardus beers available and packaged to go. And it's like, oh, sweet. That's something you don't see very often, especially in this market. I mean, there's a point at my Publix had like a Goza available, and I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And then 6 months later, it was on a table by the fucking registers on clearance because no one bought it. And that's even a really hip style compared to Belgian beers. I get that fanaticism, and it is really flattering. And believe me, I've been in that situation and sometimes still am, even from a person who's in the industry. Boy, would I love to get fucking celebration all year round. But that's not the case. It's just not a thing that Sierra Nevada can do. And I get it. I get where those people are at, but yeah, that's just the nature of the beast.
Well, there's an overall theme in a lot of the both complaints I get and the suggestions that we get from our core clientele, the people that really want to see us succeed. But that through line is they think we have a lot more power than we do. As if we can make a beer happen, that we can just say, okay, now we're doing this beer and we're selling it to bars and restaurants, and we can just kind of manifest it that way, not really understanding the distributors as a relationship to us, and that they can just say, no, thank you. We don't care for that beer. We don't want that beer. We're not interested in it. Not realizing that it has to then go to beer buyers, many of whom don't understand these styles or aren't interested in these styles. They're just looking for the most popular styles that are selling today and the beers that they recognize and their customers will call as call brands for them. And it kind of is pervasive. I get emails all the time from people in other states that have visited Florida. We're a vacation destination, obviously, and they'll try our single in Havana, our blonde ale with guava, and they'll say, I live in Michigan, or I live in Pennsylvania, or I live in Idaho, and I want this beer all the time. How can I get it? And I have to say, well, we're nowhere close to being able to produce enough beer to make there. We'd have to find a distributor for this. And you kind of I give them the rundown. I give them an honest, short understanding of what the industry looks like, and trying to kind of make them understand that that's not something that's coming anytime soon. And a lot of times they'll come back with, well, my brother owns a bar down the street and he'll carry it. Who do I have to call? Do I have to call the local liquor store and get them to pick it up? Or do I have to call a distributor and see if they'll take it? And I have to say, well, no, it's not even in the cards. If I have one customer in Idaho, I can't send the beer. I need a partner and a distributor that thinks they can find 50 or 100 or 200 customers to try to make that happen. And it's all done with great intentions, but it is, I feel helpless in those situations. I'm trying to help these people out because they're obviously passionate enough the beer. They're passionate enough about the beer to email me directly or the info page at our website about getting our beer. That's a wonderful thing, but it's also very frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. I recall many instances of that happening at our previous brewery, and even in those early days, I remember being different than I was now. I was being more hopeful that we can make this happen, even in our somewhat local footprint. With we would make some specialty beer and want to send out 20 slims of it, and the distributor would have a hard time and I'm like, there's plenty of places that do rotating beer. Well, why can't you find a home for one pallet of slims? Well, I now realize it's not as easy as you think, and that was even when competition was not as much as it is today. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so we do have a lot of people that are in the industry that listen to this podcast, and they can, if they're working on the side of distribution, can understand this. You're talking about taking a beer kind of from obscurity, from your tap room, and trying to sell it out into the market. I have the largest chain the largest chain that sells beer in Florida, I have a cooler placement that is set by the corporate office that says this beer is supposed to be in this location from this date to this date. And I oftentimes can't get them that beer. The largest chain in Florida, a cooler placement set by corporate, and I still have a hard time getting the beer in that cooler. Imagine what it's like to try to get any beer anywhere if that's the case. Their entire system is set up to make it automatic. And yet there are levels and store managers and disapprovals and approvals and a system that locks you out and doesn't allow you to do X, Y, and Z. It eventually gets done, and when it gets done, it kind of orders itself. But this happens all the time. We put out a specialty beer. I get a pre-order from a chain, and they refuse to take it. And that's just something you grin and bear. And you go to your distributor, and they go, "Nah, sorry, we tried." And then you go to the sales rep and you go, "What happened?" Sorry, we tried. And then you go, "Well, I guess that beer's just not going to show up there." And that's for the stuff that was supposed to be automatic.
Yeah. And I recall an instance with an out-of-state situation with being actually having a distributor tell us, "Oh, we'd love to take your beer and we can sell this, blah, blah, blah," and just fucking not.
Yeah, there's that too.
And I don't feel super bad really telling the story because one, that distributor doesn't exist anymore. They sold. But also, this is my fucking home state. And I remember being at GABF, having people from a big distributor in Philadelphia, like the biggest craft distributor in Philadelphia, come up to our table, have our beer, and we're like, "We'd love to have you come for Philly Beer Week and do some events." And like, sweet, that would be awesome. I had a trip planned to go visit family, went and met with them, talked things over. Like, yeah, they planned out events. We went, did those events. They were awesome, and met a lot of people in the city who enjoyed the beers. And they're like, "Hey, how about you do some distribution here and send us whatever, and we'll sell it." And like, sweet, yeah, we'll do that. We'll send you mixed cases of cans and mixed pallets of mixed pallets of cans, mixed pallet of kegs, and all of that. They couldn't fucking sell anything. And it's like, why is this just sitting there? "Yeah, we can't find anything home for it." Like, you said that you wanted this stuff, and now it's going out of code. "Well, it would be really best if you had a sales rep here." Like, fuck off. And when they sold, they're like, here's the new contract for the distributor. You need to sign this to transfer your rights over. Like, what if I don't? "Well, then you won't be distributed in the state anymore." Like, sweet, I'm not signing that.
Yeah, those are really tough relationships. I do sell beer in several different states, and one of the first things I always say is we will not have a distributor or a sales rep there. We have no plans for the foreseeable future. So if you think that's necessary, then we're not the right brewery for you. This has to be something that you guys can move on your own. But I haven't run into that too many times, but it definitely can go down that road. In the same vein of not really understanding the well-meaning people, not really understanding the distributor relationship and the power that a brewery actually has, especially once their beer leaves the brewery itself, the amount of times I get people who will come up to me and be frustrated that a bar 3 counties over is selling our beer for a too high of a price. Or I've actually been contacted on email with someone complaining that they ordered one of our beers at a bar, not Bear La Monk's, but at a bar, and that bartender was rude to them. And they were very upset, and they thought I should know. I think it goes without saying, but it must be a misconception that we have anything to do with these bars and restaurants. We don't set their prices. We set a PTR, or an FOB, the cost that we charge the distributor sets a PTR, their price to retailer to that bar, restaurant, what have you, and it's off of our hands. We have nothing to do with it. And it very much seems on a regular basis that people are contacting us, engaging with us in a way that somehow we have an influence over that.
I think we skipped over a middle part to this misconception thing, and that is people's misconception about the middleman. Is there's a lot of people who don't know about distributors.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
don't know that we don't sell our beer to bars, to restaurants, to package stores, liquor stores, grocery stores, and all of that. Like, we have to sell our beer to someone else who then sells it to them.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, they're like, oh, why? I have a friend who owns this bar. I'm like, okay, cool. Tell them to talk to their whatever. Well, I can just put you in touch with them, and you can sell it to them. I'm like, no, I can't. It's like I can talk to them, but I can't sell them anything. And they're like, well, you don't need to have the middle. When like, yeah, we do have to have that, and we have contracts. We have things that say that this is how it works. We have state laws that say this is how things work. And yeah, a lot of people don't even realize that about all of this is that plays a part into it, that separates that connection even further, that you were saying. Like, not only do we have very little to nothing to do with these bars, is there's another person or a company involved in this.
And it's rightly so. Why would they know how our business works? And it says not to beat up on people, but it is something that we deal with. And I spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with things like this that I can do nothing about. And the idea that there is a three-tiered system involved, and that I do not work directly with some of these bars and restaurants, or people that will ask me, hey, I live in X city, where can I find your beer? Now, there is a way for me to go in and run a report of did buy accounts in a certain time period and single out a geographical area. But with the nature of our business and the way people rotate beers, there's no guarantee that beer is going to be there. If it was bought 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, even if it was a case of beer with 4 6-packs in it, or if it's on draft, if it's been tapped yet, we don't know if it's been tapped yet or was already tapped and gone. The amount of information that we have directly about who has our beer when, depending on the brewery, and I know that there's a lot of really more in-depth software, and the bigger breweries have a lot more data points, and they can really mine that data better than I can. But for a brewery producing a little over 2,000 barrels a year and our resources, hey, I'm in Pompano. Where can I find your beer? Your guess is as good as mine for the most part. It's really, really difficult. And you'd think we'd know more about this, but when your beer is being sold on average to several hundred different accounts on a rotating basis, it makes it very, very difficult to track.
Do you have a beer finder on your website?
I've never done one because I used them in other places and never found them to be very effective. So I never went down that road.
Remind me after the show. I'll tell you about a good resource that is with Encompass, that they have it already built into their system.
Do you pay for that?
Nope. Yeah. So now I lost the train of connection.
Well, let me jump in and give you a couple other things we can talk about here. One of my biggest pet peeves, and this is a complaining kind of thing, I don't think that consumers that come to my tap room understand that we pay for glassware. It does not show up on our back door printed with our name on it. The stork doesn't bring it. We actually have to go to a company and give them monies in exchange for goods and services. And
Crypto,
then we use,
right?
What's that?
Crypto, right?
Yeah, all crypto. We have to give them currency, and then we have to have that glassware. For whatever reason, a certain percentage of the population seems to believe that glassware is free and that they can just take whatever they want whenever they want to. They think that their $5 glass of our single ale comes with a free glass, and
Keep the pint all the time.
keep the pint all the time. And it drives me absolutely insane. And I think that it comes down to people believing that we are a operating, at least forward facing, seem to be a very, very large business, and that we somehow won't miss it. We do. I write the checks. It's never a good thing when you go, I just bought a pound of glassware 3 months ago. Where did it all go? That's where it went.
Also going along with those lines is when a bar expects free glassware.
Of
It's
course.
like, oh, I'm a bar. Why would I why would I pay for the vessel of which to serve these liquids to the consumer? That should be free all the time from the distributors and from the suppliers.
Well, that's like the breakdown of what did I make off that keg? And then you want a tap handle that some of you like to put up on your walls like they're moose heads, right? Like they're trophies that you've won. So you want to take one of my draft handles that I paid at least 50% of, because usually our distributor does a 50-50 co-op, and you want 2 cases of free glassware, and you're going to buy 1 keg every, 3 months? Some of these places, because they're heavy rotation places that only want super specialty beers. So I broke even every time I sold you a keg. That is not a good business model. So you have to stay away from those people.
I need another tap handle. You have 4 of them up on your wall. I can't reach that.
What do you think? I got a ladder? Come on.
I will give props to distributors who charge deposits on tap handles now. Because it does keep them a little more honest on those things.
So there was a time, this was in the early days of Funky, and I think we were doing an anniversary party or a bottle release or something. And I was coming in late to work a bartending shift. And it was in a giant, Mike, obviously you know this, but the original Funky Buddha was in this giant plaza. Yeah, strip mall. Thank you. And our place was at the very end, right? One end. I had to park at the complete opposite end. And we're talking 20 businesses in between. So I'm getting out of my car. I'm coming a little bit late, and I see someone walking out with at least 6 glasses in their hands. And they've got them, these are stemware. So, they got them upside down in between their fingers. I mean, it looks like they're about to start juggling them, like they're barely holding on to all of them. And they're walking to their car. And I said, hey, can I help you with that? And they go, oh, yeah. And I took the glasses one by one out of their hands. I said, thanks. And I started walking back to the bar. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking back the glasses you stole from my bar. I didn't steal them. I said, you bought like 6 or 7 glasses on your way out? These ones that are definitely rinsed out and have had beer in them? Well, fuck you then. Fuck me for stealing my glasses back from you who was stealing my glasses. This is where we're going with this. But that is something that really grinds my gears, as they say, about this like mentality. Like, yeah, this is just mine now.
So, it's slightly off topic now. Is branded glassware worth it having for serving?
So I was working with our glass supplier, and it turns out that branded glassware actually is costing me a little bit less than non-branded glassware. Because of whatever different warehouse they have to ship out of. I don't pretend to understand this because it didn't make any sense to me. But the quote that I got on branded glassware was a little bit cheaper than by pennies than the non-branded glassware was.
But do you think that you would have to replace it as often?
100, yes. So yes, they get stolen more often because it's branded. So we said, well, it doesn't cost us more to do the branded glassware, which we assumed that was the case, but that wasn't the case. And then we said, well, at the end of the day, it looks a lot nicer. It's better for pictures and people wanting to put stuff up on Instagram and Facebook. And when someone steals it, at least they have a glass in their house, and they're being reminded of our brewery. And it's one of those things where it's wrong, and I want to punish those who are stealing from me. But my partners and I were like, okay, screw it. Let's just roll with this. It looks nicer, blah, blah, blah. And we'll try to police it a little bit better.
I wholeheartedly disagree with you on that, because not just from a cost perspective, but I actually think that a lot of times that unbranded glassware looks nicer from an aesthetic, because you're drawn to, when you have a branding on the glass, like you're just drawn to that. And maybe if you're trying to create a nice photo with something going on in the background, or the beer, the can, whatever, like that, the logo on the glassware to me is too distracting and takes away from the aesthetic of what you're actually going for with the picture. And that is probably just me talking from an artistic standpoint, while most people who are but when I want my brand, if I own a brand, I want the beer, the glass, the picture, everything about it to tell a story. I don't want just the name to pop out on it, and that's how I want it to be portrayed. And I also don't want people to steal my fucking shit. So yeah.
Good point, Mike. Good point. I've every single time I go to order glassware, I do the same mental exercise and just say screw it and order more. But it definitely is a source of pain. There was, and I remember being young and thinking it was cool to take things from restaurants. I mean, I was 20 at one point and would steal salt and pepper shakers, and I mean, pretty much anything that wasn't nailed down, because I needed to furnish an apartment that I basically lived off of, a bed on the floor, a Rubbermaid container for a coffee table, and 2 outdoor chairs for my living room. So I needed all the things I could get. I understand where some people are coming from when they take this stuff. It's just, it never stops being frustrating on our end.
Yeah, absolutely. More misconceptions.
Okay.
Pre-show you threw out like 500 to me.
Okay. And just so you know, the way you set that up, I was like, well, okay, what do you got, Mike? I thought you came up with something.
I poorly did that. That was a terrible segue.
Okay, I do. I'm going to save you.
Threw an ephus to you.
I'm going to save you from the sinking ship. So we have talked about this many times, as far as the rarity aspect of things and how frustrating it is, because people think that rare equals good. But it goes both ways. For being a person that not has to anymore, but at one point in my life, I spent 3 days a week doing direct samplings at retail locations. Every week, I do 3 a week, and I did this for years because I'm trying to get our beer out there and get people trying the beer and sell beer. It was what was necessary. And you run into, in that situation, the opposite of rare equals good. You have rare equals bad. So you have one aspect of the clientele, the craft beer aficionado, the beer geek, who, I've seen that too many times, it must be garbage, or it's not on Untapped with a 4.3, which we've talked about ad nauseum. But then you have the flip side of the person you're trying to actually physically sell a 6-pack to, that says, well, if I haven't heard of it, then it must be pretty shitty. There's no commercials on TV about this one. So how do I know it's good? It's a very frustrating position to be in when rare equals good and bad at the same time.
Yeah,
and what rare means is different for each person.
It's probably not something that I would think of myself, but I tend to not do those types of samplings because I am awkward as fuck around the public, and it's best that I don't do things like that, because if that were to happen around me, I'd probably mutter something to myself, and then probably curse in front of the person, and then they'd be mad. So I've never come across that type of argument from someone myself, but I can see where someone's mind can get them to that point, and it absolutely be frustrating and infuriating at points to hear.
It is, because you're trying to sell your beer, and you have to already, one of the other big things that you have to deal with is in the customer's mind, and that in that context, not someone coming to my tap room, someone that is going out to buy a 6-pack at their local liquor establishment, and they have 40 options, and you're standing there with a little cup to say, hey, try this one, right? Oh, I see you have a Blue Moon in your hand. Why don't you try this Barrel of Monks Wizard that actually tastes like a white ale? And they, one, want to refuse you because they've never heard of you. But also, one of the big problems is pricing, right? There is this conception by a lot of the people in that segment of the beer buying populace that there's no justification for my price being higher. And we are living in very strange times now where inflation and all the things that are going on. I mean, I'm seeing Blue Moon for $11.99 in places. That was never the case before. But there was a time when we were priced, $1.50, $2 more than a comparable style, if you want to put it that way, of a macro beer. And the conception from the customer when I tried to sell them that was that I was ripping them off and that I was somehow playing a game with them. Because they couldn't understand that a local brewery. I had a guy tell me, "You're local, you should be cheaper." I'm local. I make at that point 1,500 barrels a year. I don't have economies of scale. I buy better ingredients. I'm more expensive. In the same way that the Olive Garden is a national company and their pasta is $7. And you go to a local good Italian restaurant and their comparable style of pasta is $13. It's the same basic concept, but it doesn't really translate to our industry as much.
Yeah, and people don't understand price breaks a lot of times on ingredients and raw materials and such, because you could even be buying the same exact ingredients as Blue Moon. Your beer's still going to be more expensive because you buy a lot less of it than your Molson Coors, Miller Coors, whoever owns that at this point in time. But yeah, like that stuff, and then freight, which is through the fucking roof right now. Like they might have their grain wholesaler be within their state and really close, so their freight is cheaper, and you're paying $300 a pallet for something to come from Atlanta or North Carolina. And there's a lot that goes into all of that. And I remember back in the day, and this is a thing that I used to throw out there a lot, and it was something that Sam Calagione said about like beer being an affordable luxury. And I still kind of believe that, because it is still way cheaper than your luxury brands of wine and spirits. But this is a beverage that has been for a long time in America, especially, been considered like a working man's beverage and a cheaper thing to have. So I can see some people getting their gears grinded by price points, and to me, it's like we're not going to be those people for you anyway. And like drink what you want that makes you happy in your pocketbook and in your taste buds. That's awesome. I for a while we were as craft trying to get as close as we could to matching price points, because if we could only match price points, we can get those consumers. The ones who even got close still weren't able to really grab those consumers. And I'm glad that a lot of places have really given up on that pursuit of trying to get the Bud Miller Coors drinkers converted over to craft, because it kind of is a fruitless battle. But sometimes when you hear a person complain about the price, it does slightly make me feel, because they're at least curious a bit. If they're complaining about the price, it means that they're willing to at least give it a try. But yeah, if price is ultimately the thing that drives them, then yeah, we're not going to get there.
I never had any issue with saying, "Hey, that's too much more bucks more a 6-pack. I'm not interested." Hey, great. That's fine. I completely understand that. I would get frustrated when I would be challenged as if somehow I was trying to swindle them out of their life savings with my extra $2 a 6-pack. It is frustrating. And I actually did have a conversation with one person. I said, "Hey, you got a Costco card? You ever notice that it's cheaper to buy more of something? Well, imagine that something isn't like, a 32 pack of paper towels. Imagine it's 350,000 pounds of grain. Little bit cheaper."
You had a little bit of a Norm tone to yourself saying that.
I made a choice, and I stick by it.
That's a fine choice.
Mike, we've gone through a good amount of my my list here. I did want to throw out this one example of someone who did not seem to understand the brewing industry very well, just because I thought it was hilarious. And I don't think I've ever told this story on the show before. But one other thing that is odd is that a lot of consumers that are not in the craft beer scope, they're not regular craft beer consumers, they seem to think that any beer that sounds remotely like another beer is somehow related to each other. And I get this with any beer that has monks or abbeys or anything related with what you would call religious iconography is somehow also in my portfolio. And it is pretty crazy. I once was doing a tasting at a store, and this guy comes up and goes, "Hey, Barrel of Monks, yeah, I've heard about your stuff. I haven't been to your place yet, but I've heard about your stuff. I've had a few things. It's really good. You make the Holy Mackerel. It's really good." And I said, "Well, Holy Mackerel is actually not made by us. That's a brewery, Holy Mackerel. But good beer. They're also local. I think they actually have it here in the back that you're looking for. But I'd like you to have you try this." He tries my beer and he goes, "Yeah, this is good. I don't like the wheat so much, but I like that Holy Mackerel you make." Yeah, I said, that's not actually mine, but I mean, I'm glad you like it. I said, I think it's in the back. It's back in the cooler. You go pick that up. He goes, yeah, it's a really, really good beer. So he goes in the back. He grabs a 4-pack of the Golden Ale, Holy Mackerel, and goes, and from across the store, goes, hey, I'm picking this up. I'm picking your beer up. And I scream across the store, "That's not my beer. I've told you several times. I'm Barrel of Monks. That's a different brewery." Just one of my best customer interactions.
I can't believe that you had that interaction with Spinner from Death to Smoochie, a fictional character.
Spinner. But I do. I get that. There's another brand down here, for anyone who knows Florida, is Monk in the Trunk. I'll go to bars and restaurants and I'll go, "Hey, what do you have for Barrel of Monks?" "Well, I've got the Amber Ale." "We don't make an Amber Ale." "Yeah, you do." "Oh, I do. I make an Amber Ale that's out for distribution. Is it by any chance called Monk in the Trunk?" Yeah. That's not our beer." "Yeah, it is." "Oh, okay."
We get people tagging us for Coppertail
Yep,
in
I can
Tampa
imagine that.
all the time. And I try to be nice about like, hey, that's a copper, like, and I'll even tag Coppertail and be like, "Hey, look, these people are enjoying your beer." And almost I would say 98% of the time, the OP, the original poster, does not do anything. They don't say anything. They don't change anything. I even one time got tagged for a Cooperstown Brewing Company beer, and it was like, awesome looking beer, not ours. They never changed it. It was like, all right, cool.
I was at a Total Wine and More 2-3 weeks ago, and I was picking up a beer for Old Favorite Friday, and there was this woman who was distressed in the craft beer aisle, and she was looking for a particular beer. And I'm wearing a brewery shirt. I kind of vaguely look like I work there for some reason, and she asked me, for help, and well, of course I'll help you out. I know this section well, and she said, my son told me to pick up the Dogfish Head for him. And I said, well, did he tell you what particular Dogfish Head beer that he was looking for? And then her eyes just glazed over, and she was even more confused than beforehand, because most consumers, they think Budweiser equals one beer. Maybe Bud Light's involved with it, but it's just one thing. And the concept of multiple beers by the same brewery is just frightening and confusing to them. And we had this long conversation, and I was asking her, like, oh, well, do you know if has your son ever said IPA before? Has he ever mentioned any of these other kind of buzzwords about beer that might lead you to believe that this is the beer he's looking for? And eventually I just gave her a 6-pack of 90 Minute, and I said, if he wants a bigger Dogfish Head beer, this will be good. If he wants the 60 Minute, this will be good. And go about your way. I go with God. I hope everything will work out for you. But it is something that we deal with a lot, is just the variety and the amount of breweries out there. People get confused. It's hilarious and frustrating when it happens to us, but it's a realistic thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how many times I have been to a restaurant or bar and seen on the menu Dogfish Head. I'm like, which Dogfish Head beer? And the server or bartender's just like, that one. Like, just point to the tap handle or something. And I'm just like, that does me no good. It's just a tap handle with no sticker. And we could talk about tap handles at some point, about how dumb I feel like they are kind of at this point. But
on the list.
It's not a misconception. It's a pet peeve.
No, but I'm saying for a future show, we can talk
yeah.
about tap handles.
An entire episode about tap handles.
Well, tap handles and merch, right? We can talk merch all day.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, all right, yeah, I'll order it. Oh, this is 60 Minute. Cool. Every so often it's like, oh, this sequence, wasn't expecting that, or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to, someone, I guess, kind of it might come across maybe a little dickish to some people, or gatekeepery to complain about something like that, because it's like, oh, you expect everyone to know, blah, blah. Like, no, but I assume that Dogfish Head probably isn't too thrilled with that being the portrayal of their beer at that establishment. Like, they would want clarity on what brand is being sold and all of that. Because I certainly like that. I've seen places that say, like, they have Copper Point beer. Like, which Copper Point beer? Copper Point. Like, the red. Like, is it our amber lager or a red IPA? I don't know. Like, right. Like, it is frustrating, because then how do they sell that to a consumer? Then they can't, and then that keg goes out of code, and then they're like, well, this doesn't move, so we're taking it off. Like, it hurts everyone in the end if there's no transparency and clarity in what is being sold.
I mean, this kind of ties back around, Mike, into what you were saying, or what we were saying about the 3-tiered system and the lack of control that we have once a beer leaves our back docks. Is that a beer gets to a bar and sometimes they say, oh, this just didn't sell, but it was never on the menu. I've seen that before. My sales rep said that we picked up a keg recently over here of one of our beers. Yeah, I don't see it here on the menu. Oh, okay. Let me go up, pop up to the bar. Oh, there's our tap handle. It just never made it onto the menu. So it's just sitting in a back corner where there's 3 bar stools and no one else knows it exists. But yet in a couple of weeks, someone's going to tell me the beer didn't sell very well and they're not going to be buying another keg. In places like that, that might not be the best location to be in the first place. But there is definitely a disconnect of what we can control. And you can say we can come and do server incentives or we can do a staff training. But we all know in the restaurant industry, how many of those people are going to be there in a month?
Yeah.
How quickly does that staff turn over? So 3 months from now, 66% of the staff turned over. Then we got to go back and do the same thing again for an account that's going to do 1 slim a month or a half barrel a month, what have you. It's really, really tough once that beer leaves your docks, is knowing what's going to happen with it and trying to baby it. And when you're super small and you can be on top of all those accounts, that's incredible. But the bigger you get, that it just goes out into the ether and then you just kind of hope.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we could probably go on about this for quite a while, but we're at about an hour-ish of recording at this point in time, and I believe I heard one of my boys crying hysterically, and they've been having some weird sleeping habits lately, so I am going to go help my wife out here in just a minute. So let's go into last calls, the point where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to voice an opinion, statement, or whatever, unobjected, unopposed, uninterrupted. And I'll just go out there real quick and say that I'm looking forward to the final season of a show that I love, Atlanta, that is coming out this season. I think it is a fantastic show that is so well written, so well acted, and I am going to go out here and make a statement. I put a tweet out about this before, but no one, I think, really saw it. Darius, the character in Atlanta, is one of the best television characters of all time. He is so complex. He is so interesting, and I just fucking love him. I love the entire show, and I'm looking forward to. I've already seen a couple of the episodes, and there's still more to come. So, sad to see Atlanta go, but I'm looking forward to what they have for this last season.
You and I have to have a long conversation about some of the Pocket episodes because I love that show too.
Yeah.
But I want to talk with you about this forever. So very similar. I'm going to go with Mike on some popular culture stuff and and someone that I really admire, and that's Weird Al Yankovic. Weird Al Yankovic, I had seen live in concert at least 3 times in my life. He is coming to locally to Fort Lauderdale in a week or so, and I'm not going to be able to go. And that makes me very, very sad. But what makes me very, very happy is that my son, who is 4.5, has just through kind of finding fun songs to sing and listen to on the car ride to school, I've gone back into the Weird Al archive and played some classic stuff, the Amish Paradise, I Want a New Duck, the oldies but goodies, and he absolutely loves them. Well, where does my love from Weird Al or for Weird Al come from? My dad. And my dad was visiting for the last week, and we had 3 generations of Abbotts in our car singing along, rapping along really to Amish Paradise and all the several other songs. And it's stupid and it's silly, but it was so amazing. We also listened to Warren Zevon, and we also listened to Bruce Springsteen, and we also listened to the Beatles, all stuff that my son likes. But there was just something so weird and fun about the 3 of us all knowing all the lyrics and singing along to those songs that just filled me with immense amounts of joy. And I know that my dad walked away from that just giddy and happy that he could share that with his grandson, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And this is from a guy who wrote a song called Like a Surgeon. Who would have known that this would touch that many lives?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Anything that you want to plug, Kev?
If you are in the Florida area, if you see Woody and Pink, our beer for breast cancer aware this month, it is all sales of our 4-packs, our kegs. The proceeds go to making strides against breast cancer. It's something we do every October, all October long. Please check it out. We're really proud of the beer. It turned out really, really well this year, and it's something that's very special to us.
Great. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Loves Beer, and you can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We're on all of the major podcast streaming services and apps, so find us there. Subscribe to the show, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. It really helps us out in the algorithm of things and bumps us up and be able to be seen by more people. And that would be lovely. If you want to support the show monetarily, go to our website, unitedwedrink.com, and check out the brands that we love, and check out places like Made in, Liquid Death, Athletic Brewing. And by going through those links and making purchases, you are helping out this show and paying for our web hosting fees and stuff like that. And it's really appreciated. Or you can go to our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, get a shirt, button, sticker. If you do one of those, hit us up on social and let us know that you're doing that. Unfortunately, we get told when there's a sale, but we don't get told who buys something from us. So if you buy some of our merch, hit us up and let us know, because we'd really like to say thank you for something like that. Other than that, we will be back in a couple weeks, hopefully with a guest. I'm working on that right now, and it should be a fun one if we do. If not, then you probably have to deal with the two of us again. But
You're welcome.
yes, for Kevin, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Cheers.
Cheers.